Hello and welcome to our Facebook Live show, Pulse by HealthJobHub. I am Prashanthi Naidu, the founder of HealthJobHub.com. On today's show, we are going to be sharing with you tips and advice on how to be successful when applying to a job online. I am super excited to introduce my special guest joining us today live on Pulse, Serge Boudreau, founder of the Recruitment Flex and highly successful talent acquisition leader. Good morning, Serge. How are you? Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Prasanthi. My pleasure. I'm really excited to be on with you on this beautiful Sunday morning.
Awesome. It is like a dream come true for me to have you because you are like one of my inspirational. Awesome. I really enjoyed meeting you, Serge, and a lot of people don't know. You and I met at an Indeed recruiting event like about 2 years ago, and we were introduced by a very dear friend, Shelley Billinghurst. So thank you, Shelley, for the introduction to Serge. And Shelley and Serge have become advisors to HealthJobHub.com and very special friends to me. So thank you so much for being on our show this morning.
I still actually remember the first time we met and the eagerness and ambition that you had when you were launching, back then it was called Locum Link, to see what HealthJobHub has become now and how much success you've had. It's been really cool. It's been cool to see it, and it's been cool to work with you as well.
Oh, thank you so much. And, it's been quite a journey. We just reached our 2-year milestone. And I can't even believe 2 years has gone so quickly. We've learned a lot, but we couldn't have done it without, all the amazing people that we've met along the way, such as yourself. So, yeah, big thanks and big shout out to you too. Serge, in season 1 of Pulse, I used to read out a brief introduction for each of our special guests. But in season 2, we are deciding to do this a little differently. Please tell us a little about yourself, and please don't be shy.
I always have a hard time describing myself and introducing myself, but I'll try. So Serge Boudreau is many different things, but I think the most important is I'm a family man, I'm a husband, the lovely wife, Diana, and together we have 3 beautiful children. So Mallory, who's 5 years old, then we have identical twins that are 1.5 years old. So we are quite busy in our household, and everything I do guides towards that principle of making sure that I support my family and spending time with them. On a more professional side, so I've spent most of my career in talent acquisition, so almost 15 years now, and I spent it in many different ways. So I started as a practitioner, as a recruiter, then into recruitment leadership. Then I spent 10 years on the job board side. So many years at Workopolis, fantastic experience. If anyone remembers Workopolis, but it was the biggest job board here in Canada. Then spent a couple of years in Indeed, and I've spent most of the last years in being a practitioner again, being a talent acquisition leader, which is what I'm currently doing right now. So I'm a talent acquisition leader at a tech firm that's doing great things. So that's really exciting. I have a passion for recruitment, always had a passion for recruitment really since I got it. And I've been very fortunate to learn a lot about recruitment working in the different jobs that I've had. So we decided, so Shelley, who you mentioned above, who has an incredible amount of knowledge of recruitment as well, we decided to start a podcast called the Recruitment Flex. So if you like to hear anything about recruitment, talent acquisition, recruitment, marketing, employer brand, we've had the biggest guests in the industry up here on this show, so which we're very proud of, and we release episodes every week, and it's focused on different topics of recruitment. So please do look for a shameless plug here, Prasanthi, so I'm sorry. So the Recruitment Flex is available on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, Google Podcasts, pretty much any podcatcher out there. So if you're interested in recruitment, definitely check out that podcast. We try to bring you the information in a really fun way. We have a lot of fun doing it. And as you said, I try to be a connector in as many ways as possible. So I'm involved in a lot of things that are in the recruitment community. So that is really who I am as a person, personally and professionally. So hopefully I'm giving you enough information of who I am.
Awesome. No, thank you so much for sharing. And guys, I've actually listened to the Recruitment Flex, and it is amazing recruiting brain food. I am not a recruitment professional, but I find the conversation so informative and interesting. And I look forward every week to listening to a new podcast. So I definitely recommend tuning in. These guys are amazing co-hosts. And there's always something funny going on. Somebody's hair is always being done. Somebody always looking at one of their guests, or somebody's forgetting to read out a line. I have no idea, but it's so funny. Definitely tune in. And amazing food, brain food for recruitment and for professionals, especially in the healthcare industry, trying to find in-demand candidates. This could be the podcast for you. So, sir,
thank you. I'll send you the check in the mail. I really appreciate it. And we are learning. So none of us are professional broadcasters. So we've gone a long way since our first episode, and we're going to keep improving. So if you listen in and you're like, these guys suck, just keep listening. We're getting better.
Awesome. Well, no, they don't suck. They are actually getting better for sure, but they've been doing a terrific job. So, Serge, all our viewers want to know, based on your extensive experience working with some of the largest job boards in the world, what are your top tips on how to be successful when applying to a job online?
You know what, Prasanthi, I think it's an interesting question, and I think it's a challenge for everyone because there is so much noise when it comes to the online world in general, and how do you stand out? So I think applying for a job is very similar in that sense. So what I usually say, and this is interesting because I spent a lot of time in that industry, is I've actually never have gotten a job from applying on it online.
Wow.
That is a little bit different, but it's really the norm if you take a look at it. And I think this for all your listeners and viewers, I think the most critical thing is the ability to build a network. And the challenge that a lot of people do is they only try to start building their network when they're looking for a job. And that's usually too late.
Yes.
You should always look at building a community of people, like-minded individuals, so you can actually build those connections. So when the time comes, you have people you can rely on that can refer you to other jobs, because referrals are still a critical part of getting a job. There's a huge amount of trust that's put in if you know someone that works at a particular company and they can either guide you that way. In my world, in talent acquisition, when it comes to, I try connected with all the recruiters at all different levels. So I have a relationship with them, and an opportunity might come up and they would think of me automatically. So this is where building a community, building a network is critical, and you should be doing it at all time. And to give you perspective, right now, it's actually the ideal time, because when you're looking at in the past, if you're trying to build connection, it's like, hey, let's meet for coffee or any type of those things, and that can take a lot of time because you have to drive to that coffee place, you have to sit. So you might be taking 2-3 hours of your time, as now so easy to schedule a quick 30-minute Zoom call, have a conversation. But I think the challenge a lot of people do is, how do you start building that network? And you always have to be willing to give. Always give. And at particular time, people are going to give back to you in that sense. And probably, like, what I mean by that is there's a lot of noise. And when I say that, there's a lot of people are trying to connect in different ways, and you have to find a way to stand out. And one of the things that I always suggest is people generally in nature are say they're transactional, and we want to be seen as relationship builders, and we all are. But to start a relationship, there needs to be some type of transaction. And to go a little bit deeper in that is, you should want to help different people to get to whatever that goal. So that means connecting people with other people that common interest or a common goal. That's very valuable to I always look at how can you connect, and commonality is one of the most common ones. And if you're reaching out to someone, if you're reaching out to someone cold, just because there is so much noise, you might not be seen in that noise. But if you see in their profile or in their LinkedIn profile, they took a Dale Carnegie leadership course at one particular time, and you did, or in high school, you worked at the same fast food joint, like, and kind of create that commonality way that you can help that. And I think build always try. And then I can go throughout like looking at. You can Google a lot of these tips, and most of them are going to be true. Make sure you have an easy to read resume. I'm always a big fan of trying to stand out, and I think we'll go through a little bit more of that. But we need to be able to stand out, and it's not necessarily always in your resume. But biggest thing, a lot of people that have been successful in their job searches and everything they do, they've been connectors and building networks. The other factor that we always have to be constant, and I talk to a lot of new Canadians coming into the country. How do you stand out? And I think the biggest thing that I always say is like, you got to be practical when you're looking for jobs, and you got to be practical. If, like, I'll give you an example. Like, my dream job is to Canadians. So Jeff Molson, qualifications or no knowledge, and I'm never going to be the judge because I just don't have that experience or knowledge. So when you're coming in and applying for jobs, especially as new Canadians, or even, you got to be really practical. There's no harm in taking a step back to really take a lot of step forward. So take a job that you can come in and really work hard, then you're going to see the job. So be very practical in the jobs you're searching for and looking online, and you're seeing.
I'm not too sure if our viewers are noticing, but I'm noticing a lot of interference on our connection. So I want to apologize to our viewers if you've been cutting out them, because I actually missed the line where you said that what your dream job was, because there was some interference, and I'm not sure if our viewers experienced the same. This is the first time this has happened, so I'm not sure if it's the Wi-Fi or internet. So I want to apologize to our viewers. If you want to send us some comments in the comments to let me know if it's cutting off, or if you're having any technical difficulties, we can actually rerun some of the points that Serge has just made. So if you are tuned in live and you did not catch any points, please don't hesitate. Feel free. Send us a chat message and we will go over anything that you might miss if there is a technical issue. I apologize for that in advance. Oh, yes, it cut out. So, Shelly, thank you so much for watching. So, awesome. It has cut out. So, a lot of what you were talking about, Serge, I am not sure why. Please repeat the entire last part. Thank you, Shelly. I appreciate that. Serge, I'm sorry. You cut off, and especially the part where you were telling me about working with new immigrants and what your dream job was. I kind of missed a lot of that.
Okay, well, let's repeat it in that sense. So okay. I'll go a little bit quicker in that sense. So you be practical in your job search. And I think it's always critical to be the ability to take a step back, to take multi steps forward is always great. And that perspective. So when you are practical, when you're looking, my dream job is to be the general manager of my favorite. So, Mr. Jeff Molson from the Montreal Canadiens, if you're listening next time.
Wait, you cut off again. You are always cutting off. Serge, are you actually doing this? You are cutting off at the point where you say, my dream job is to be the general manager, and then you cut off. And then you continue talking.
Yeah, I wonder if the Montreal Canadiens, where is my dream job, they're actually hearing it and they're like, no way, we don't want anyone to hear that. So maybe that's the case. But am I cutting off right now?
No, you're perfect now.
So my dream job is to be the manager of the Montreal Canadiens. But
The what of the Montreal Canadiens?
The
Literally,
general
the
manager of
general
the
manager of
Montreal.
the Montreal Canadiens. Okay, I hope they are tuning in and they're listening to you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's not going to happen. So I have to be practical in the sense I haven't spent my whole career in hockey or anything like that. So for me to apply for that job, it's probably not the right time. But what I could have done in my career, and it's never too late. Like we always have to put that in perspective. My way earlier or even now and spend a job as a stick boy almost, and you kind of make yourself, you go up, you be very successful, and you step up to the next role. So basically how you're really Canadians, and it's like it's not bad for you to come in even though you have incredible qualifications where you're coming from. There's always going to be a challenge when you're coming into a new environment. So the ability to take a step back, increase your skills, and then eventually move into that dream role is very commendable. And there's never should be never any shame in any job that enter to a doctor is we're all very important people, and it's your job should not be the defining factor of who you are. So the ability to take a step back and do a job and do it really well and move to the next step is really important. It's really critical.
You know, that's actually very relevant for healthcare professionals, especially international medical graduates coming into Canada. A lot of them sometimes are still in the process of their licensure, but they get their permanent residency. So it's kind of like putting the cart before the horse almost, because they are admitted into the country, they have to be here for a certain amount of time, but they can't work or practice as physicians. And it's a very frustrating and it's a very daunting process for a lot of healthcare professionals. And sometimes they have to take that step back and they have to do something else that they would not necessarily do. And all they know in most cases is practicing as a doctor. And then you find a lot of them don't have the skills necessary to go and work in, other types of roles because they were not trained for that. Their mindset is not that. And you find a lot of Uber or taxi drivers that are actually IMGs, international medical graduates, that just cannot get licensure. So, you bring up a very valid point.
What would you recommend for those people?
Well, I just say perseverance is key. The government lays out the the rules in terms of permanent residency, how long you have to be here in the country, and they tell you when you can go back. I always recommend going back to your home country and continuing to practice, because what happens is, and I've seen this with so many international medical graduate candidates, is that they come, they wait here for 3 years or 5 years not practicing medicine, and they have their applications within the different colleges. For example, the College of Physicians and Surgeons in Alberta, they'll have the application for eligibility and to get their practice permit. But because they've been out of practice, it actually works against them. So, the college wants to see that you are actively practicing medicine, but the country, the federal government wants to see that you are actually in Canada, during the time that you need to be here. So a lot of people actually ended up losing the chance of becoming eligible and getting their license to practice medicine because they were here trying to, put in the time of being a permanent resident. And it's not cheap living in Canada without having a good job to support you and your family. And many times over, these IMGs coming into the country are coming with their families and they have mouths to feed. And that's why they have to try and figure out what type of alternative employment that they need to go into or they can do in that interim. But then it's working against them because they are losing that same time working as a physician in their home country. So, it's a very difficult situation, and I'm not sure why governments and the colleges don't really work together to make it a much more streamlined, easy process. And I do hope that they figure that out sooner or later, because there's thousands of IMGs. And then you hear about the shortage of healthcare professionals globally, but yet you have so many people in the country who are qualified, who have worked, but just cannot get licensure. So it's a big debate. It's political as well, and I just hope a solution comes to it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And if you put that in perspective, it's one of, and we see that across a lot of different verticals and a lot of different same level as medical doctors, but
Mhm.
it's definitely a challenge of new Canadians coming into the country because, yeah, you're right. They're coming in and really looking for a new life and new opportunities, new challenges. And it does take a while to be able to get the
Yes.
Canadian license. So
Yes.
it's a challenge. And this is where, unfortunately, and just how it's set up right now, is you have to figure out a way how to feed those mouths and to be able to support yourself. So
Yes.
there's nothing wrong with taking that role as an Uber driver or a cab driver or working at a fast food restaurant or whatever the case is to really build that Canadian experience.
Mhm.
It's like we can all argue if it's fair or not fair, but in reality, it's the reality right now. So we just need to adjust to it.
Well, this is it, and it's a choice. It's a choice that a lot of people take, and being an international sort of immigrant into Canada, I know that it's a huge undertaking to move countries, and a lot of people make that sacrifice because they are in search for a better place to live. Safety and security is important as well, but it is a difficult process. I won't undermine that process at all. But at the same time, this is awesome advice. We have to be able to take what we get to start and then to build from there. And I have no doubt people are so resilient and they actually are able to build themselves up very quickly. So it's just a matter of starting, getting that first leg on the ladder and continuing going up. But from your perspective, Serge, as a talent acquisition leader, how can people stand out when they're at the interview stage?
Well, and we always talk about in that first question on how do they stand out during applying on jobs. And there is like the ability to, there's not a lot you can do outside. If you look at it, make sure that your resume has all the critical information, and we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Mhm.
But the interview is so critical. So you work really hard to get to that interview, and a lot of people, I see this all the time. I'm sure they're very qualified, but unfortunately or fortunately, in a sense, if you don't do well during the interview, it really affects the ability to get that job, and it also affects the ability for you. So the number one thing that I say to everyone is learn to be a great an interviewee. I mean, so there's so much information, and we're so lucky in this generation because we can learn there. So if you're looking for a job and you're not spending a lot of time on Google
Mhm.
watching YouTube videos of how to interview, and basically practicing every day. If you're job searching, you should be practicing interviews a
Mhm.
part of your whole process. So I think that is critical. And like not a lot of people take that seriously. They take a lot of time just making sure their resume is bang, and that's great. But in reality, your resume can be great, and if you can't communicate what you do
Yeah.
during the interviews, you're not going to get the job. So you got to put that in perspective. The
Mhm.
ability also to stand out.
Yeah.
And what I mean that during the interview, and I think one of the things that I always suggest is when you're looking for a job generally, when you're trying to get out of the clutter, is find a hiring manager and send them a video of you describing why you'd be perfect for that job is going to stand out. Create a portfolio of what you've done in past jobs. So what you're saying during the interview, you can actually back up with documentation and showing them, hey, I've actually done this. I've created this new program. It was this successful.
Mhm.
And I always say create a portfolio. And a lot of people, when they say portfolio, they think, oh, I'm not a creative designer. I don't need a portfolio. You can be in any job and create basically documents that showcase what you've done. I always think you should put in a visually pleasing type of profile. Like Adobe Spark has this great program that you can create your own website that highlights those, or create a portfolio. Definitely suggest you do that. So the ability to stand out in general always happens. But like my number one tip for interviewing is practice, practice, practice. become so good at it. Use your wife, use your kids, use your best friend. I don't care. Get them to, because the questions don't change that much from company to company. We've become like, we're a little lazy on the recruitment side, that we haven't innovated that much as far as the questions are always the same or very close. So the ability to have those questions on top of your mind, practice it, that you're comfortable. Imagine if you go into an interview, how much better you're going to feel if you're prepared, if you practice. It's like anything in life. So I think that is the key thing. So practice. Second thing, find a way to stand out. And standing out is, you're going to say a lot of things. Find a way to back that up. Find a way to prove that you actually did that. Because a big part of a recruiter is deciphering who's lying and who's not, and what is actually real, what is exaggerated. And if you have concrete facts, instant credibility. So 100%.
No, thank you, Serge. We have a few questions. So Karshni Naidu has asked, has the recruiters in Canada and US been employing during COVID?
So, and I'm going to take that question. Is it, are we hiring? Is that, do you think?
Yes. So have the recruiters in Canada and the US been employing during COVID? So have you been hiring?
I think it's been a mixture for a lot of industries. So if you're in industry with critical these people are, the people that work in grocery stores and in a lot of different sectors have been so critical. So those industries have been hiring because there's been a demand. When COVID initially hit, a lot of uncertainty created a lot of companies to dial back. And I get it. And in business, uncertainty is very scary because we don't know what's going to happen, and you don't want to keep employing people. Then you're going to have to lay them off or furlough them. So you got to be very careful about that. But I think I've seen a trend in the last maybe month that we've, and I hate using this word, but it's become the new normal. So people are now realizing, okay, business needs to keep going. We need to keep hiring. So hiring has really started to trend up. But again, it really depends on what's going to happen. Like if cities are shut down again, and if we're looking at what's happening in the US, it's a little bit scary in some ways. And if you start opening it and start hiring again, then suddenly cases just spike up again. We're going to see a shutdown again. So for now, we're seeing a serious uptake in hiring in Canada. I know for a fact, and my company works in the US as well, and we're hiring dramatically in the US as well, because companies are like, okay, this is a new normal. We need to keep doing business. We need to, those projects we delayed, we need to keep rolling with it. So I it's not at the same level. There's still a certain level of uncertainty, but I think we will see that uptake as long as it doesn't get out of hand.
No, thank you. And, in healthcare as well, we've had a number of roles go across our job board. And right now we are focusing on just the in-demand type of healthcare professionals. And I've seen jobs for clinical psychologists, for nurses, tons of jobs for nurses, tons of jobs for physicians across the USA and in Canada. So they are still hiring, especially healthcare professionals. This has kind of been the most critical time. Yeah.
Like, have you seen, like, on your numbers on HealthJobHub, do you see more job postings than you did maybe in March?
Oh, yes. The jobs are steadily coming back. They were frozen in March when the whole full lockdown occurred, but right now they are steadily coming back. So in March, we still had a demand for nurses. We still had a demand for doctors. That didn't change. That will not change, especially to be on the front line to work with COVID patients. So that's strong, and it's always going to be strong. But now we are seeing the clinical psychologist roles coming through, the physiotherapy roles coming through. I just had a special guest on our show last week, and he is the owner of Nose Creek Physiotherapy, and he's hiring physiotherapists now because his virtual healthcare clinic is taking off. He's just now found a new untapped marketplace that a lot of people don't want to go in necessarily, but they can get treatment online virtually. And now he's tapped into this dormant marketplace, and now he needs physiotherapists to be able to come through and do this virtual type of care. And it's brilliant. Like, he was actually quite excited about this, and it's also training up now and reskilling and getting into that whole virtual mindset of delivering care. Another really interesting observation. I was listening to Michelle Romano. She's the founder of ClearBank, and she was on a call with the CEO of Google. And one of his key observations on his perspective of what is his sort of predictions for the future is that the physician practice as we know it, the family practice that we go into the clinics, is going to be obsolete very soon. He says that whole concept is moving virtually. So it's not like the physician is going to be obsolete. They are still going to be there in demand, but they don't necessarily have to be in the clinic offering the service, because a lot of that service can be administered online. And that's where they see the future heading, especially for healthcare. So
how do you feel about, because one of the challenges with internet connectivity is maybe some demographic same level in speed or the same segment of the population that be left if everything is done online.
Okay, so one of the challenges of internet connections is exactly what we are experiencing right now. You are cutting off at critical.
Really, again?
I have no idea why, and it's like the first time, so it could be our Wi-Fi, and this is very real, and that's a great point you've just raised, is that sometimes you might be wanting to do this whole virtual healthcare and clinic, but it's frustrating for maybe the patient to be in a process where the internet connection is bad and they can't actually get the right treatment. I know in some countries where they don't have strong internet connections in certain areas, so it's just not even an option. But here in Canada and the US, we are in much developed economies, and it could definitely be something that can be delivered, and it can be delivered without technical difficulties. But our experience over here having this chat and having you cut off, is a prime example of sometimes why it's not the best format. But I did not get to your full response, Serge. I only got to the point about the challenges using technology. I did not get the second part of it. Sorry. Can you reiterate what you were saying?
Yeah, and my apologies. It's maybe Sunday morning and it's still lazy, so I'm not sure. So basically, you almost highlighted exactly what I was talking about. Even in Canada and the US, and we're seeing this as a challenge with the kids being in school and online learning, that not all demographics of the population have the same access. As far as, and it might be there, but they don't have the funds to pay high-speed connections in that case. So there is a certain segment of the population that this is always going to be a challenge unless we fix it and we give access, higher access to high-speed internet to the majority of the population. That and we're seeing that in Canada and the US. So that is a challenge for healthcare when it comes to being practitioners and doing everything online. I'm sure we're going to see that with certain segment of the population. Then the other segment of the population is the older generation that maybe is used to that face-to-face and won't want to go away from it. So it's going to be an interesting shift, but it's interesting to get that perspective.
And one last point on that is the new concept of hybrid healthcare is gaining popularity. And so this is what Nose Creek is doing. So due to COVID, they were forced, because of the lockdown, to go virtual. And now with the reopening, they are doing a mix of hybrid, or the hybrid, which is the virtual plus the face-to-face consults. So what happens is you first go online and you get, therapy from your physiotherapist. And then if you need to book an appointment, then you are seen in the clinic. And so they're calling it their hybrid model of healthcare delivery. And that's what they want their healthcare professionals to do going forward. And they feel that it is hugely efficient because it's taking, so much like faster to deliver their service by doing it in this model as compared to previously, where you have to travel to the clinic, the physiotherapist has to travel to the clinic, then you have to wait in a waiting room to be seen. To your point now with like the whole networking element, you can do it very quickly by just setting up an online meeting, getting that initial consult, figuring out, what's actually wrong, and then booking a face-to-face consult. So it's actually working really well for Nose Creek, and I envisage a lot of physician practices would have the same experience as well, the hybrid model. So that actually brings us very nicely into our next question is, what do you think are the top skills that are most important for people across industries, including healthcare, to have, especially now in this new era during COVID-19 and beyond?
Well, I'm going to answer that question in a couple different ways. I think it's also important, like if anyone's listening and trying to figure out where they should be going in their careers, is there's different sectors I think that you should be looking at. Then we can go into some of the skills that everyone should have in more healthcare professionals. But if you're trying to figure out where your career is going, I think one of the things that you should look at is data science. We're processing so much data right now as we're evolving. It's just the numbers are just quadrupling every year about how much data. So as we move forward, it's so critical that we have people to have the ability to interpret the data and actually put it into actionable items, or the ability to take that data and have it something that people can actually use and leverage to improve what we do. So data science is so critical right now. The other one, and we talk about with everything going into the type of space we're going into, is we forget how important it is to be creative. And creative people is the internet is a noisy place. And a lot of companies and a lot of people, you need to figure out how the way to stand out, and the ability to have that creative juice in you, and the ability to create content, the ability to create websites that stand out is so important. And these can be in jobs like in UX, UI, but it can also be in any job. You can be a receptionist at a medical clinic, and if you have the ability to create content that you can put out there to advertise your business, it's going to give you a leg up. So the creative space is so important right now, and pretty much everything in tech. Like if we look at, and when I say what's going on in the world right now, and technology evolves so quickly, and like if you put in perspective, the internet is very young. Like what are we, like 25 years, 30 years, and I think we're going to be coming at problems that we never thought of, as the data keeps multiplying, systems keeps, software in itself is tough to problem thinking of today, and we're going to need to people that are extremely knowledgeable that can fix those problems. So I think those are the sectors that, if you're listening outside of healthcare is extremely important, because healthcare is like, without good health, you have really nothing. So if you look at going into, I've always said it, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for nurses. I think nurses are the most undervalued position in the world. You think about it, if you're sick and you're being taken, nurses there, they are extremely helpful. They really care about their patients. So I think nursing is always one, and I'm like, I always encourage, like, if you can go in nursing, and I have a lot of respect for the whole medical profession itself. First of all, because I couldn't do it. So I see blood and I almost faint. So I don't think it'd be a good career choice for me. But looking at those skills that I talked about at the start, as far as creativity, understanding data, those are all transferable to any type of profession, including the healthcare profession. So the ones that are going to stand out are the ability to leverage technology like we were talking about to offer a better service. So hats off to Nose Hill. Is it Nose Hill?
Nose Hill Physiotherapy, yes.
Yeah, like that they're evolving in that way. I think that's great. So those are the skills. If we look at other skills, like, and the ability to communicate over video is going to be so important. Like the ability to, because if you're dry and no personality over people, you're probably going to be the same over video, and it's going to come across even worse. So I think that's practicing and learning to be able to communicate over these types of platforms are so critical. In general, like if you look at, I'm a believer the next 20 years, it's a skill-based economy. Like we've shifted from, it's really a thought type of economy. So it's basically, it's a knowledge economy is what I mean. So having as many skills as you can get is going to be extremely valuable in anything you do, and it's going to give you a lot of flexibility. So that can be very basic. It can be like being a master in Excel. It can be the ability to edit audio or video, the ability to create visual designs. Like you don't need to be in a particular position to be able to learn that. We are so fortunate, basically, because you can Google anything now and you can figure out how to do it. You can even like Google how to plumb your house, and I don't suggest it, but the knowledge is there and it's so at our fingertips. My parents and my parents' never had that ability. So imagine how, like when we talk about the internet, and there's downsides to it, don't get me wrong, but it's also created a huge opportunity for a lot of people is leverage the knowledge you can gain. Basically, the internet has kind of eliminated the middleman. Now, if you're an artist and instead of waiting to get published, or say you're not going to get published, you can self-publish and broadcast it on the internet and compete against published authors. So
100%.
We are in a really special time in so many ways. It's just we got to be careful that we're taking advantage of it.
No, awesome advice. I love that. And, it just also ties in a little bit to the resume. And I don't think we really touched on the resume as much as I would like to. So if you don't mind, can you share with me, what are your thoughts on the resume? Is it important? And, normally we would list our top skills on the resume and send it in and hope for the best. But do recruiters even use like keywords to kind of filter out resumes? Like, how does the whole resume process work?
Yeah, this is a really interesting one, and this might be controversial in some ways because a lot of people, like there's a lot of, it seems like every day I see 10 people in my LinkedIn network that they're now resume coaches. And I think there's a value in a really well done resume, but I think we overthink the physical document. And like I talked about before, is you got to figure out a way to stand out. So this can be multiple ways. Is like I mentioned earlier, is you can create a video about a particular job, find the hiring manager on LinkedIn, sending it to him. You can create a portfolio, like I mentioned, and include it as part of your resume. Include links to places that you've spoken about a particular subject that you're applying for a job, to really give you that credibility that, hey, I know what I'm talking about, and it gives them something that stands out. So like a lot of people think that algorithms and keywords is extremely important, and it almost should be, but like, let's be realistic. 99.9% of resumes out there are being rejected by a recruiter, not a machine. And a lot of people say, well, you got to make sure that it goes by the ATS. The ATS, which is an applicant tracking systems that recruiters use for incoming resumes, it's not. It's the ATS is doing nothing. It's being led by humans that are potentially rejecting you. So in perspective, what you need to do, in my opinion, is have a resume, make sure it's clean, looks good, no errors, list all your skills, make sure you have, and it depends on the industry, what those skills are. If you're in tech, if you're in healthcare, make sure you have all your certifications. But it's not something that I would spend all the time just making sure it's 100% perfect. And that's just me, because I literally will take 20 seconds to look at a resume. Do you have the qualifications? Do you have potential knowledge? Then I determine if anything on your resume makes you stand out, you have a link to that portfolio, you have a video, yeah, that's gonna help you. And you're gonna catch my attention. So the physical document, like, make sure it's nice, but it's only start of the journey. Make sure you're figuring out a way how to stand out. And this is where, when you have a network, having that connection, be able to introduce you someone at the company, major advantage. So those are the critical things. Don't overthink your resume. Don't make it look bad. Like, don't get me wrong, but make sure you have the info. But it's not about that physical document, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, because I think a lot of people have multiple resume formats, especially when they are applying to jobs online. They are thinking, what's the best way to captivate that attention of the hiring manager? They take lots of time and effort, and they get so disappointed when they submit this resume online, and like literally they don't even hear anything, especially when it comes to online applications. So I think your advice about building that network, getting an introduction, having a referral, takes you so much further than you can just go on your own, cold applying online. But what worries me sometimes is what happens to that person who is new to a country, like a new Canadian, and doesn't have that network. I suppose they still, like, there's no excuse. They still have to try and figure it out. We have tools like LinkedIn, research the companies, where they may be interested in working, and try and connect with those people and start building some sort of conversation. Am I on the right lines there, Serge?
Yeah, it's a massive challenge. And when you're new to either a country or a region and you don't have that network, it's tough. So what I maybe would suggest in that case is start building your network before you even come to the country. And this is not sending a connection on LinkedIn then saying I need a job right away, because I do get a lot of those types of connections, and I can't really help you, and I have a lot on my plate. It's not going to entice me, unfortunately. But if you come to, and this goes to the top of the conversation, is try to find commonality and explain your situation, but don't ask. Try to figure out a way how to give to the connection. And that might be some of your knowledge, some of your connections, the ability to connect you with someone. You're going to start building that network a lot quicker, in my opinion. So I would say start building your network as quickly as possible in the pretext of you're trying to help. And people are going to be a lot more willing to go that next step and help you as well. So it's very much a sharing economy right now, if that makes any sense. So share what you know. If like, to give you an example, say you're connecting with a recruiter, maybe find an interesting article about the recruitment industry and send it to them, like, hey, I saw this article. What's your thoughts on this point? And that's a way to start engaging with people and start building those connections in that end. So it's a challenge, and it goes back to the other point. You're coming into the country. You might have to find something that is way below what your actually skills are, but take that time to learn skills, to also start making those connections. Hang out where the people you need to be able, and when I say hang out, that can be virtually, where the people you need to be connected, engage in that community, help that community, and you're going to see that will be brought back to you 1,000-fold.
Awesome advice. Thank you for that, Serge. And our last question. What are your thoughts on the future of work post-COVID-19?
Oh, I wish I had that answer. Am I cutting off in the last little while? Has it been?
No, you've been actually really good.
Okay.
Yeah, the first bit was really bad, I have to say. Like, we couldn't hear lots of the important nuggets you had to share. But the second bit has been great.
Well, probably the system knew, it's like, this is not really interesting information, so let's just cut him off. So I think that's just the algorithm and the system. To answer your question on COVID, and I think if I had a crystal ball, I have my thoughts, but I'm putting this out, and I might be 100% wrong in that sense. So it's been an interesting time because there's COVID, which is like a pandemic that we've never seen till like once 1918 with the Spanish flu. So it's not something that we have a textbook or playbook on how companies should be able to deal with. Then you add in the Black Lives Movement, diversity, inclusion. The world of work is changing right before our eyes, and what I think COVID has done is kind of accelerate some of it. And a couple things they've accelerated is the ability to work from anywhere. And this has been a thing. How long have we been talking about working from home and working? And I've done it like 10 years ago. I worked from home and I became adjusted and adapted to it. I'm still shocked today that companies are not prepared. When COVID hit, people had to scramble to give the ability to people work from home. And working from home is not just giving them a laptop so they can work. The tools are different. Like Microsoft Teams, Slack, all these tools have come in place, and people that know how to use these tools before are doing really well right now because this has become a new economy. And for me, what I've really thought of, what I've seen is we've always had remote workers, but maybe it's one or two or three. So then you'd have the remote worker working on a conference call and everyone's in the boardroom. Huge disadvantage to the remote worker. So as we move forward, companies have to be aware, if we're going to give more flexibility, you got to be conscious that it's fair for everyone. So if I'm working from home and I have the ability, but everyone else is in the office, I'm still at a disadvantage. So companies need to figure that out. But anyways, a lot of talking to get to the point of, yes, I think the economy is going to change, but I think what's going to happen is, yes, there's going to be more people working from home, but there's still a lot of pushback from especially different generations of, if I'm not seeing you, you're actually not working. And I've seen actually examples of employees need to have their Zoom camera on all day, so their boss can physically look. If your company is doing that, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. You're not going to move into the next generation of business. In that sense, it's just not the reality. So it's going to be interesting. Some companies are realizing that, oh my God, we're saving a lot of money on real estate, saving a lot of money on different things. So I think some CEOs, some executives are seeing this as a huge advantage. But I think the world of work has been changing anyways. This is really much a skill-based economy, knowledge-based economy. So if the more skills you have, the more flexibility it will give you. And I think we're going to see short-term project gigs, and like the gig economy that we've been talking for a long time. I think that's going to move forward quickly. But COVID has accelerated the ability of how we do business because we needed to adjust really quickly. Diversity and inclusion has been the other one, which I think this has always been a challenge. There is a lot of bias in the hiring process, the recruiting process, and if someone says that's not the truth, they're lying or they don't know better, because it happens. What I've done is to try to remove that, because people will have bias and it's really tough to avoid it, and we can all try to be better people, but this is where we can leverage technology. Like in my present company is, I want to make sure I'm putting forward the best possible people. I don't care about the name. I've actually redacted the name. I use an AI tool that basically looks at the resume and looks at the at the job description and kind of matches at least the skill sets to see, okay, is it based on what they're saying, do they have these factors, and it uses natural language processing to be able to figure out that. But that way I'm not being unbiased. The technology is helping me, and I'm not looking at a name, because I might have someone that is Jim and someone that is another name that's not common to Canada. And if you're a lot of Canadian recruiters, US, will look at the Canadian name first, and we're trying to avoid that. So using technology is going to be one of the aspects that we're going to see that change. Companies need to be like, you can't say you're diverse and inclusive, then look at a picture and it's all middle-aged white men, as an example, or all like you have to preach what you say. So you have to be proactive in finding that talent that brings a lot of different perspectives, experience to your company. So, and all of that saying, the economy is changing. But one of the things that I want to take a step back is, I am nervous when it gets back to normal that people will fall back in their old habits, meaning companies be like, okay, we need everyone back in the office, even though we have a lot of, I'm just comfortable with that as Mr. Manager that's been doing it for 40 years. So if you're not in the office, I don't think you're working. So I'm hoping we don't fall back to our old habits. We really take advantage of this to really accelerate the pace of how we're doing work.
No, that's great insight, Serge. Thank you so much. And thank you for being a special guest on Pulse by HealthJobHub today and giving our viewers some awesome tips and advice. Are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Secondly, I apologize if the internet connection is on my end. I hope people were able to get some of my information. And please.
If you didn't, where can they find you?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. That's the place to find me. So Serge Boudreau, find the name. Based here in Calgary, do find me. But you can find me, the Recruitment Flex podcast we talked about the start. I'm on every social media channels, but the ones that I'm more active are LinkedIn and obviously our podcast. So definitely. And I am willing to connect with everyone. And if I can help you, please reach out. I'm very sincere in that. I will try to do the best to help you.
Oh, yes. And he is certainly sincere about that. He's helped us at HealthJobHub tremendously and has been so approachable. So anybody, please take him up on the offer. If you want advice on recruitment or talent acquisition, he's definitely the guy to go to. Special thanks to all our amazing viewers. Thank you for tuning in live. I do apologize for our technical difficulties today during the show. Sometimes you have no control over the Wi-Fi connection, but I hope you got the most of it. And if you didn't, open invitation to contact us and let us know if we could help you with anything else you might have in mind in terms of recruitment marketing. And don't forget, if you enjoyed our show, please smash the like button, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and please share with your network. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe and God bless.